Hello, dear professor. I'm Wang Wei. The name of my thesis is Research on French Wine Companies' Marketing Strategy in China. After I went to France, I was deeply attracted by excellent quality of the French wine. Every week, I would buy some to drink. At the same time, I was thinking about if I can do some in the wine business in the future. After I went back to China, I found an internship in a wine trade company. Through the internship, I have a more in-depth understanding of the wine business. Therefore, I started my research. As we know, the quality of the French wine has been highly prized by consumers around the world. Its long history, excellent quality, and mature brewing technology are also leading the development of the wine industry. At the same time, as a new wine market, China has a huge amount of potential consumers. But the market is still not mature enough now. Nowadays, wines are treated as luxury products for many Chinese or just a lifestyle choice more than a dinner-time beverage. And for some, it's just an investment product. China's low consumption of wine is mainly due to the lack understanding of the wine culture. On the other hand, the lack understanding of the Chinese market of the French wine companies is also an important reason. But the opportunities still exist. China has large population, huge market capacity, and is currently in the economic increasing period. All the industries have great opportunities. However, due to the Chinese culture, business habits and political systems are different from the West. Many Western companies are hesitating to enter. At the same time, Chinese consumers also want to be able to experience many good products from the West, but many products cannot be purchased. In particular, imported wines are generally more expensive in China compared with in France. But successful wine marketing requires local knowledge and insights. In this thesis, I comprehensively applied the method of the marketing analysis, marketing investigation, and case analysis. In my thesis, I analyzed China's marketing environment and gave some marketing advice from macro to micro, from the whole to the specific. The research question in this thesis is that how can the French wine companies sell their products to China and make more profits? This thesis will analyze the Chinese market environment and research on Chinese consumers' habits, and then give suggestions for the French wine companies to help French wine companies to understand the Chinese market better. The study of the Chinese wine marketing strategy will not only help the French wine companies to further understand the Chinese market, but also benefit to the Chinese consumers. But due to the limitation of my research ability, I was not able to study one problem in very deep. So I choose to conduct a more comprehensive research. At the beginning of the thesis, I studied the Chinese economy and the wine industry from a micro perspective. Later, I conducted a survey in the 1960s China's food and drinks fair in Chengdu to study the individual consumers' behavior and try to find out the influencing factors of the consumers' decision-making. After that, I also conducted a case study of a specific wine sale company and interviewed the staffs. Later, I will detail the contents of my entire thesis. Thank you. Okay, now I'll deliver a brief presentation about the contents of my thesis. I introduce it from four parts. There are the approach and methodology I used in my thesis, and the main works I did, and the results and suggestions, and the last one is the innovation and limitations in my thesis. Okay, now let's move into the first part. In this part, this is about the approaches I used in my thesis. And in my thesis, I used both the quantitative and the qualitative method. And I did a survey of the individual consumers' behavior to study the most important factors which influence their decision making in order to help the marketing strategy design of the wine trade companies. And on the other hand, I also checked much information about the market environment and the industry. Then I used the opportunity of my internship, conducted a case study of the company and interviewed the staffs. So by those methods, what did I do? Next, I'll introduce my main work. In the beginning of my thesis, I studied the existing literature, including the basic marketing theories and the studies on wine trade. But most of them are from the macro aspect, such as the industry, global economy, or the world trade policy. The researches on the specific consumers or analyzing the status quo of the wine business are not too many. So I decided to choose to mainly analysis the individual consumers' behavior and talk with the specific people to connect the first-hand information to study more specific. Then, by checking the information, I studied the currently marketing environment in China. We can see that China's population is continuously increasing, and the income level of the residents continued to increase, which means that China's overall purchasing power will continuously enhance. And on the other hand, we can see the demographic structure. China will gradually into the aging society in the future. They will pay more attention to the more healthy lifestyle, which the wine products can help them. And you can see this picture. The consumption of the spirits is still very big, but in the future, some of them will transfer their choice, and there is already a trend at this time. Then, I started to study the individual consumer's behavior. So I conducted a survey in the 1996 China Food and Drink Fair in Chengdu. This is an event for dealers from all the country in food and drinks business. Wines are very important product in this fair. And you can see the exhibition of the wines. And this fair is not only attracted the companies, but also attracted the consumers from everywhere. So I took advantages of this opportunity to survey them. Then I analyzed the data. I used the reliability analysis tool in SPSS software to test the reliability of each variable involved in the study, and used the factor tool to find out the correlation of the consuming behavior and the different factors. Finally, I selected a very typical company to conduct a case study to further study the problems in particular aspects. So Nefro is a very small trading company with independent imports and export rights, and it is mainly engaged in the distribution of the wine products. Nifro is very concerned about the maintenance of the relationship with other companies and government. It built relationships with hundreds of wineries in Europe. So just in the beginning of June, Nefro also contributed the corruption between a French city, the name is Sainte-Foy-la-Grande, and Yueyang city in China. They are the mayors of the two cities. And it's the warehouse. It's a training course for their employers. So I mainly interviewed one of the founders, asked her some questions about operating, marketing experience, and her understanding of the wine industry. She patiently answered my questions, and I summed up what I had learned from Nefro. So after the study, I learned a lot and summed up a few conclusions. Firstly, they should pay more attention to the young consumers. China's young consumers are more receptive to emerging things, and they have more courage to try new things. And in China, there are more and more young consumers with purchasing power. Therefore, French wine companies should focus on them. And secondly, they should also maintain the elder consumers. And I have mentioned before, China will gradually into the aging society in the future, which means there will be more and more old peoples. So it's also important to seize this consumer group. And thirdly, they should pay more attention to the package. Most of the young people are fashionable consumers, and through the previous analysis, now more and more consumers groups began to attach importance to the appearance of the wine. Therefore, for the younger consumers, the companies should pay more attention to packaging and the design. And fourth, they have to know real needs for the consumers. And fifth, they have to pay attention to maintain channels and developing new channels. Because there is a very big difference between China and the Western society. The Chinese are keen on the relationship maintaining, so which is the central idea in Chinese society. Therefore, the French wine trade companies should attach importance to it. Finally, they should understand the characteristic of Chinese consumers. Because French wine trade companies should try to simplify the whole French wine process to just make it easier to understand for the Chinese consumers. In my thesis, there are many innovations as well as many limitations. So about my innovations, the research is relatively comprehensive, and I studied the individual consumers' behavior, while other researchers didn't do it very deep. And there are also many limitations in my thesis. First is the sample size is very small, and which may not represent the entire wine market well. And the research methods are not appropriate enough, and I also ignored the actual situation of the French wine companies. And I did not take good account of the geographical factors, as China has a very large territory and many provinces. So the later researchers should pay more attention to it, I think. Okay, this is a brief introduction of my thesis. Now I answer the questions you asked. Question. On page 16, you mentioned the frugal policy. What does it mean? Because the corruption in China was very serious in the past, so after the new president got the power, he has applied a lot of harsh policies to beat corruption, which include the frugal policy. In this policy, each official expenditure is strictly limited because in the past, government officers often used public funds to eat in the high-class restaurant or buy luxuries. Question. In terms of the different scales you used, have you developed them or do they come from the literature? Yes, some of them are come from the literature and some of them are coming from the data of the Chinese custom. Question. Have you calculated the crown batches alpha for all scales? Is it bigger than 0.7? Yes, all the variables I selected are bigger or almost bigger than 0.7, which means they are suitable for the researches. Question. What was the interview guide that you used in the interview process? It's mainly from two aspects. First, I learned about Nefro's operations and sales strategies. Then I asked her about the current situation of China's imported wine industry. And following this guide, I have asked her 9 questions, which are attached in my thesis. Thank you. That's the end of my presentation.